It's honestly really hard for me to believe sometimes that it's been almost a full year since Microsoft released their strange little dual screen tablet phone hybrid, the Surface Duo. I can remember, just like it was yesterday, perusing the internet looking for any review, be it written or in video format, that I could find to just see other people's thoughts and opinions on Microsoft's strange device. One review in particular stands out to me still in my mind almost a full year later, and that's the review that was written by Ron Amadio for Ars Technica. And the reason that this review stands out to me is because it is by far the most negative review that I could find about Surface Duo. Now, it's been a year, almost, since I've read this review. So what I wanted to do here is I wanted to show you guys this review. I wanted to reread it, react to it freshly with all the hindsight in place, all the updates, all that hindsight being 2020. And let's discuss whether or not this review was, let's say, unreasonably negative. Because I don't know where I'm going to stand all this time later. But before we do that, if you're new to the channel and you do enjoy today's video, please do consider hitting that subscribe button or that like button. That helps the YouTube algorithm a ton. Thanks. So let's jump over here to our little picture-in-picture, and this is the review in question. So 3 headlines here, right? So you've got a very unproductive productivity phone. I like that he put the productivity in air quotes, or not in air quotes. I did air quotes. He did actual quotes because it's written word. That's funny. Surface Duo review. Orphan Windows hardware makes a poor Android device. Microsoft's first Android phone has a lot of problems. So you've got 3 kind of headlines up there, and they're varying degrees of not super positive. So let's move on. Let's see what else we've got here. So we're in, the second paragraph here of this review. We've got something that I actually think is just factually inaccurate. It says the Surface Duo's sale pitch is that foldable display technology isn't ready yet. So try this best we can do right now version that features 2 rigid 5.6-inch OLED screens with a 360 hinge. That was not the pitch of Surface Duo at all. Folding OLED screens were available then. They're available now. They could have done a foldable OLED screen, but they didn't want to do that. The pitch that they gave from the very beginning was that they believed that 2 discrete screens was better for multitasking. And I think that that is 100% true. You can get close to simulating having 2 discrete screens with something like the Galaxy Z Fold. But the point that people like Panos Panay made was that simulating 2 screens in our brains is different from actually having 2 screens. And for me, that has been borne out in my real world experience. Our brains perceive 2 separate screens differently than 1 screen partitioned. This just is true to me, and that was the pitch of Surface Duo. The pitch was not, we'll do a folding screen later, but for now, this is the best we can do. So we're a paragraph in, and that's factually inaccurate as far as I can tell. I bring up Microsoft's sales pitch because, boy, is the Surface Duo bad at doing things Microsoft says it's supposed to be good at. The phone feels like it was made without any respect to ergonomics, hand size, pocket size, or anything else that makes a good Android phone. I mean, it's a big device, right? Like here's the Z Fold next to it. You can get an idea of the dimensions here. Which one of these 2 do you think is more pocketable? Which one of these do you think is easier to single hand, reach across the screen and do these sorts of things? I mean, there's something to be said there about the ergonomics, but I think that most people wound up using it like this in book mode, or at least I did. And in this orientation, I just don't see ergonomic issues here when you're using it in book mode. I mean, sure, if you are in phone mode and you're trying to just one hand the thing, the scope, where you can reach, yeah, that might wind up being a problem for you. But I don't know, like I can half see what he's getting at, and the other half maybe not so much, but we'll move on. So he has a whole section here basically talking about the appearance of the Duo. At least it's very pretty, he says, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. The Duo is a great looking device. This sentence is funny, though. He says, the shock and awe of Microsoft's design language is probably enough to make some people fall in love with the device and ignore all of its other faults. I mean, not me, but some people. So that just kind of makes me laugh, because it maybe I'm reading context or subtext here that isn't there, but does that come across a bit smarmy, a bit like you just hated the thing so much that, I don't know. I don't want to say you're not giving it a fair shake. I don't know this reviewer. I've not read any of his other work, but that I'd love it. What do you guys think about that sentence? How did you read that? Because I read it in a particular way. He says, crack open the Duo and you'll see a series of strange decisions. First, there are the two 5.6-inch 60 hertz displays, which are way wider and shorter than most Android displays. Then you'll find some comically huge bezels, which really ruins the digital moleskin vibe the device gives off from the outside. It's not clear why the bezels are so large. We have the technology to make them much, much thinner. And as we'll get into later, the short, flat 4.3-inch displays would greatly benefit from the extra height. And he says he guesses that's one of their many concessions to thinness. No, this has literally nothing to do with it. Like, why would you think that the bezels being thick and the displays being wide? Do you think you're just spreading out the internals and they got it thinner by spreading them out? I mean, I guess you could maybe think that, but no, the screens are extra wide because that was the purpose. They're 4:3. Together, they're 3:2. And 4:3 aspect ratio, that's what paper is. And we use paper in that aspect ratio for a reason. We've experimented with all sorts of other sized things to write on, and we always come back to 4:3 because it's good for multitasking, or it's good for tasking. It's good for getting things done. Having two of them will be good for multitasking. This was a conscious decision. As much as having two screens instead of one big screen was a conscious decision, making them extra wide was a conscious decision. When you're in an app, when you're in something like, whatever, you're working on a spreadsheet, you're editing a photo in whatever app you like to edit in, that extra width is really nice. For the same reason that, like, you don't pick up an Android tablet, like, that winds up being the same aspect ratio as, if I could open this thing, that winds up having the same aspect ratio as a phone. This is wider than a phone, right? Duh, of course it is, because wider is good on a bigger screen. It's really useful. Let's see here. With a mono speaker, no headphone jack, and a wonky 4:3 display, the Surface Duo is not exactly a media machine. Yep. He calls the 12 megapixel camera terrible, cheap looking pinhole lens. It's terrible. It's not a good camera. No arguments there. He does spend some time here praising the hinge on Surface Duo. And, look, I still think the hinge on Surface Duo is absolutely phenomenal. It feels so good. It's rigid, but it's smooth. It's fantastic. The hinge on the Z Fold 2 is very good, but even it fails to be as consistent as the Duo. With the Z Fold 2, you get good resistance, and it's smooth, and then about here, you get more resistance. It's like it tenses up a bit for that final opening. Duo is just consistent all the way through. Not a big thing, but the hinge is great on the Duo, and he does talk about that for a good while. He talks about how thin the device is, and in fact goes as far as to say that the internals are really incredible and show how Microsoft pulled out all the stops to get this thing as thin as possible. Agreed. Okay, so now we're back to it being way too wide, and he in fact spends 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 paragraphs on talking about the screen being wider than a normal phone. He doesn't like that it's a 4:3 screen. And I get that. If you don't like that, you don't like that. But it feels as though when you read this, that he's missing the point. I don't think he's quite understanding. And I'm not saying it's because he's stupid. Just different people like different things. I feel like he's not understanding why someone would want a 4:3 screen. Like, it's one thing to say, this 4:3 aspect ratio is not good for me. I don't have a use for this. I would rather it just be more narrow, like a dual screen case on an LG phone, versus saying 4:3 screens are bad. Because you can justify one. You can make an argument for one. You can't really make an argument for the other because this is subjective. It's a preference. And he spends a long time here making an objective statement about a subjective opinion. He talks a lot here about how he doesn't like putting it in his pocket. He wanted to leave it home because it was so awkward to have in his pocket. And I mean, look, we'll reassess the pocket test here. You know, these are not super baggy shorts, and I can fit it in my pocket just fine. Is it big in the pocket? Yeah, absolutely. It's large in the pocket. Let's compare it to the Z Fold. That's your difference there. The Z Fold is heavier, but I think it's probably easier to pocket. But like, let's be real here. You know, I was able to carry this thing around for a long time in my pocket, and it was fine. It never got in the way. I wasn't sitting there thinking, oh man, I got to get this thing out of my pocket. It's driving me crazy. Like, it wasn't that bad. Microsoft's own website says it designed Surface Duo for people who want to get more done with the device in their pocket. It apparently did not consider mobility when it was drawing up this phone. I mean, they did consider mobility, but they also considered that 4:3 aspect ratio screens are really good for productivity, especially when you're working on spreadsheets or things, you're doing work, you're typing an email, you're reading an email without having to line wrap every other word. They made a concession there. This was the balance that they struck. You don't like it, that's fine. This is an interesting sentence here too. It's just way too wide. Surface Duo is just generally bad at quick, casual interaction. There may actually be some truth to that, because you have to pull it out of your pocket, you have to open it, do your thing, and then close it. But I think that, and this may be me being biased and defending something that maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. But to me, there's intentionality to it. You pull it out of your pocket. First off, I wear a smartwatch, so I see my notification and I determine if it's worth pulling the phone out of my pocket for anyways. So determine it's something I want to address. But there's intentionality there. So I pull it out, I have to open it, I respond to what I'm doing, and then there's a finality to closing the thing and reinserting it into my pocket. And I actually liked that. Again, maybe it's Stockholm Syndrome. I don't know. But that's something that not only didn't bother me, I actually thought it was fine. I actually kind of enjoyed it. It felt harder for me to impulsively pull my Duo out of my pocket and get lost scrolling through Reddit or something. And that's not a bad thing. So continuing on the widescreen thing, he says the form factor of a $14 ream of paper is not necessarily a great guiding light for a $1,400 smartphone. Maybe you've got the cart before the horse here. So it's not, I don't feel like it's that Microsoft went to Staples, saw some paper, and went, the perfect phone design. I think it's that Microsoft realized that for a really long time we've used that shape paper for reasons that predate the paper, and thought that would be interesting to use in a phone because we're so used to using that form factor. He doubles down on the idea that buy an LG phone with a dual screen case, because that's what it sounds like he wants, and that exists. He then spends some time here talking about the history of Duo, why it's such a weird Android device, and he's pretty much on the ball here. He talks about an article here from Windows Central and basically uses that information, and he's pretty much on board there. He talks about why it ran the 855 instead of the 65, because they were already set with their hardware, and then they switched from Windows to Android late, and that's why there's no NFC, on and on and on. So a little bit of history there, and I don't think there's anything there that I'm going to jump out and say, hold your horses there. He spends a bit of time here talking about the gestures, swiping between, throwing apps between two screens, these sorts of things. And he talks about how they feel inconsistent and not all that great at times. And look, at time of this review, I would have 100% agreed. It's a good thing now that for the most part, this stuff works really, really well now. It's nice and smooth to do these things. It's nice and smooth to bring these things up and to span them. All of this stuff now works really well. The gestures have been ironed out to a point that I don't think anyone's really going to have any problems with them anymore. Maybe some will, but seems to me like the gestures are taken care of. He talks about here that, for apps to span properly, that you need them to be recoded, or else you just get this weird gap in the middle of the app. And he's right there, spanning. Not a lot of apps have supported it. Fortunately for me, that's not something that I really care about at all, because I don't span my apps. To me, having two apps open simultaneously is what I want. I don't care about spanning apps all that much. I care about having two discrete apps at the same time. But, you know, look, if spanning is something that you were like, man, that's the thing, that's the killer feature. Yeah, you may be disappointed. I know that there really aren't that many apps that span in that way. And I guess I should show you what I mean when I say span. So let's look at like Outlook. If you take Outlook and you put it in the middle, you get your messages here and then the actual text of the messages over here. And not many apps have supported that. You know, that is what it is. To me, I don't really care because I like having two apps up, not one app twice. So, talks about stretching YouTube across the gap. Similar problem. You have a cut in the middle. But again, that's not what this is for. This is not a media consumption device in that way. But that being said, look, if you want to use this thing for media consumption, that you can make an argument that it's really not that bad at it, because what you can do here is a couple of different things. You're not going to span YouTube, but could you have Reddit open on one screen? Sure. And then on the other screen, you're watching a YouTube video, which, because the screen is extra wide, you don't really have to rotate it because it's a pretty big, window to play YouTube in already. Absolutely. And then maybe, you're going to set this thing up on your table. So you're going to put it in tent mode, and that winds up being, a pretty decent experience. So if you use it, if you want to span YouTube, no, you're going to hate it. If you want to use YouTube in any other way, it's fine. It's actually somewhere between fine and good. This section here kind of confuses me and makes me laugh a little bit. He talks about notifications are really bad, he says. And he talks about how he uses his notifications a lot, and it seems like his justification is that the notification shade doesn't fill up the whole screen. And I don't understand necessarily why this requires 2, 3, 4 paragraphs talking about the notifications being skinny. Does this bother anybody? It never even occurred to me that this was a problem. By the way, this was on my birthday. He took the screenshot, so happy birthday to me. Is this a problem to anybody else? I'm confused by this. Fair point that there's no external display for notifications. I get back to the intentionality of opening it or wearing a smartwatch to see your notifications, but sure, no problem there. It would be nice to have an external screen for some people. Now, I'm not bothered by it, but I can understand it. And he cites this, basically what I'm saying, and Microsoft has said it too. Microsoft tries to salvage this decision, saying when it's closed, you don't have to be interrupted, but that's not how notifications work. That's exactly how notifications work. And he's basically just saying use software to control your notifications. Sure, I guess, but I even if I wasn't wearing a smartwatch, the Duo's in your pocket, it will vibrate. You have to pull your phone out of your pocket at that point to check it. So you're complaining that action requires one more step, which is to do this. Maybe I'm being too soft on it, but I just don't let's run through this. So let's imagine I don't have a smartphone, and this is my Z Fold, and it's in my pocket. I'm walking down the street, I get a notification, I pull my phone out, and I double tap the screen, and I see what the notification is, and I put it back in my pocket. Cool. Okay. Duo. Walking down the street, my pocket buzzes, get a notification, I pull it out, and I do this. And I put it back in my pocket. Is that really that bad? Or again, am I crazy? Have I lost my mind? Am I missing something here? It doesn't seem like that big of a deal to me. And if you have a smartwatch, it's literally the same. There's no problem. All right, here's another strange one. How are you supposed to type on this thing? He said, it's all fine until it's time to type, at which point a regular old Android keyboard will pop up, and you think, now what? Ron, you type. You just take your thumb, and you type words with your key. In book mode, the default mode you're expected to use, you can never type efficiently. I can type fine. I can never type. You can't type efficiently, I guess, but I can. So maybe this sentence should say, I can never type efficiently, because again, you're making an objective claim about a subjective opinion. But anyways, the keyboard is only ever a regular phone keyboard that pops up on the left or right screen. Two-finger typing is out of the question. You can either swipe and let autocorrect take the wheel, which is terrible. It's not great on the Duo. Fair. Autocorrect is not that good on the Duo. Or you can hunt and peck with a single finger. He's asking for a split keyboard. All right, so we'll dive in here too. All right, here's the Duo. So let's open up Twitter. Pull my mic a little bit closer so that I don't sound too distant. And let's go to compose a tweet. So you'll see what happens. The keyboard pops up underneath the text, and it actually slides over, which makes swipe typing, in my opinion, totally fine. I don't have a problem there. Okay, let's throw it over to the other screen and go to type. And guess what will happen? It's the inverse. And you know what? I'm going to say it's totally fine as well. I don't have issues here. Now, if you're asking for a keyboard that stretches all the way across, well, then what would happen there? You'd be obscuring what's on the other side of the screen. And sometimes my favorite uses for Duo is referencing text here to type here, or to long press and drag over and so forth. I don't want this to be obscured whenever I type. That's bad. I don't like that. And then if you're in phone mode, you get a full super wide keyboard, which for thumb typing, I feel like is really, really good. In fact, in my review, I praised the thumb typing on the Surface Duo. And he really doubles down on this, that he just cannot stand the typing on Surface Duo. And again, this is a subjective opinion, but my opinion is very different. I would love to know how your typing experience has been on Duo. He spends a long time just going over the bugs on Duo, and look, a lot of these have been fixed, but new ones have popped up. To me, the absolute number one problem with Surface Duo is the obscene amount of bugs. There are way too many, and it's a problem, and they still have not squashed this, so I'm not even going to take any time to dig into this. Too many bugs, I'm going to agree. In his closing remarks here, the good. It's pretty, so, there's that. The bad, lack of a split screen keyboard means that he doesn't like the typing. We've addressed this. The phone is extraordinarily wide for no reason. No, not for no reason. You not being able to think of the reason doesn't mean that there isn't one. I like the widescreen. I bet most of you like the widescreen too. The whole notification experience is terrible with a skinny notification panel and no way to see notifications when the phone is closed. A skinny notification panel made it like that's that big of a deal to you. I'm really not trying to be like a dick about this review, but that is such a that's such a tiny petty thing to literally have to type multiple times in your review. You're that hung up on that. No NFC, no wireless charging, no water resistant, no high refresh display, last year's system on a chip, breakable USB-C port, buggy software, too expensive. I'm with you. All of that, totally understandable. I get it. Microsoft's "we would really like to ship this existing hardware" mentality ruined all the hype around its entrance into the Android ecosystem. That is worth pondering for a while. What is the hype level for Duo 2? Has the original Duo hurt the potential success of this dual screen line? I don't know. For some people, absolutely. For some people that read reviews like this, 100%. 100% it's been damaging. Well, that was fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'll put a link to this review in the description so that if you want to read it as well and kind of dig in a little bit deeper, or maybe you want to read the 282 comments that I lack the courage to click on and check myself, feel free to do that. Thanks, as always, for making it to the end of today's video. Thanks to those of you who have chosen to support me through scaryofliteral.com or through my Flatter account. Stay tuned for more coverage just like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.